Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us again. Today, I'm delighted to host Dr. Renae Beaumont, and Renae is an assistant professor of psychology and clinical psychiatry at the Weill Cornell Medicine New York Presbyterian Hospital. Thank you, Renae, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ofer.
I've been waiting for this chat for a while because there's so much I'd like to talk to you about. I've been a long-term fan of your work on emotional understanding and emotional regulation in children with autism, and especially about the way you use technology to teach these. And since this meeting is all about the intersection between autism, emotions, and technology, and since you're an expert in all three, why don't you start by telling us a bit about your fascinating work?
Oh, thank you, Ofer. And the feeling is mutual, I can assure you. So I guess the main work I've done in the autism and technology space is with the Secret Agent Society program. So this is a video gaming-based intervention framework that teaches kids how to understand emotions in themselves and others, how to express their emotions in more effective ways, and then uses that foundation of emotion recognition, emotion management to teach them skills around how to socially connect with others.
So social competence through emotional competence.
Yeah, I think you've absolutely, hit the nail on the head with that. From my understanding, particularly for those on the spectrum, that understanding emotions better in themselves and others and being able to express those emotions in effective ways is really a foundation for them being able to develop and also apply social interaction skills when they need them and when they choose to use them.
And when you think about the optimal age to start doing that, when would you recommend?
I think the sooner the better, to be honest. I think there's so much research out there around the importance of early intervention. And for all of us, the sooner we can develop these skills and how to navigate the challenges that life throws at us. I mean, you think about the recent pandemic. I think all of our coping skills have been stretched to the limit on a global level by this. So the earlier we can start developing those skills to cope with life's challenges, I think it really helps to set us all up for success.
So in that case, can we actually start using such programs in toddlers or preschoolers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's incredible potential. I mean, technology has so many new innovations coming out all of the time. It's how do we use the power that technology offers us, the opportunities for engagement and connection for good. I think technology gets a lot of bad press,
Exactly.
but it's like, how can we use that for good to help us all learn the skills we need to do our best and connection, human connection. I think we're living in a time when that's never been more important.
So when you think about using technology, especially with kids with autism, one of the comments often that I often got was, I'm trying to get my kids off the screen and to meet other people. How come you're trying to convince me to let them watch more or have more screen time?
Absolutely, Ofer. I've heard that so many times too. Yeah, for sure.
And what would you answer then?
I think we need to look at children's individual interests and passions. And if technology is one of them, it's like, well, maybe instead of, playing games that maybe aren't helping them develop strengths or connect with others, how do we take that interest and help them learn skills that are really going to set them up for success in life? That's my response. So rather than trying to completely discourage technology, it's like there's a lot of good there. And let's help channel that interest and that fascination and sometimes preoccupation in a way that's really helping them rather than harming them.
How in that case can you actually compete? Because if you're coming up with a new game or piece of technology, it's never really going to be comparable to what the big studios can do. How are you going to compete with the temptations of actually playing other games or watching other pieces of media? That's
a really great question. And I'll be honest, I even struggled sometimes around, well, I want to have created a video game as good as that. I want kids to be coming back that often, right? And whilst, we have pretty good engagement, even in my mind, like how do we reconcile that? And I think, what's really great to see in recent developments and evolutions in technology, whether it be with Minecraft or, Roblox is super popular amongst the 8 to 12-year-olds that I often work with. It's, in some ways, I love what they've done in terms of focusing on creativity and connection rather than necessarily the world's best graphics. So, it's taking those concepts around how do we allow for individual tailoring and creativity and connection, and taking those qualities, which, with much lower budgets and smaller teams, I still think we've got great potential to take those qualities to create an engaging platform for kids. And then I think the focus on iteration, like I often say to kids, we're constantly updating our software, and whenever they come in and play the video game, if they're doing it with me, it's like, hey, I want you to be our consultants. I want you to give us feedback on how we can make this better, because they are the experts on what engages them. And then we take that feedback and use that to inform future iterations. So whilst, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and whilst it may not meet all my hopes and dreams where it's at right now, it's a work in progress. And I think if we go in with that mindset and think about what are the core values driving our work, we can still do incredible things that make meaningful differences in children's and families' lives, even though we maybe don't have the budgets and teams that some of the big players in the gaming industry do.
One of the things that I thought about when I saw the name of it was that how engaging it is, because it doesn't have the word teach, it doesn't have the word emotions, it doesn't have different titles that might actually deter some kids on the spectrum. Instead, you came up with this secret agent. And why? What made you do that?
I love that question. And full disclosure, I did not come up with the name, the kids did. So back in the very first version of Secret Agent Society that I originally developed for my PhD, it was called the Junior Detective Training Program. That was the name I came up with. And, working with kids on the spectrum, one of the great strengths is they can often be very honest. And they're like, ew, what's that name? And then I'm like, okay, fair enough. I said I like to take their feedback and use it for the greater good. And so I'm like, okay, we did some focus groups around what would they like to call it instead. And Secret Agent Society was like the big winner in terms of what they thought was a cooler name at the time. And it really has held. Like, a lot of the kids are very intrigued. They're drawn into this world of spies and espionage. So full credit, the kids came up with the name, not me.
So the whole idea of being a detective is actually seeking the emotional clues around us. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically the kids at the beginning of the video game, they're kind of welcomed into the International Secret Agent Society headquarters, where they're told they're becoming special agents. So they have to go through multiple levels of training in order to graduate as special agents. And obviously, to be a great special agent, we have to be able to read what's going on with people around us and be able to accurately interpret social situations. But just as important, we need to be aware of what's going on with our own emotions and how to regulate and manage them. So that theming very much naturally lends itself to the development of these skills in a fun, engaging way for kids.
I think, the name society actually suggests that there's more than one agent in it. How did you actually introduce the idea of a group into what I guess was originally designed as a standalone game?
That's a really wonderful question. So the very early research and ongoing research we've done is on group-based intervention. And I guess one of the questions I really had was, we can use the video game effectively as a teaching tool, but in terms of really getting the kids to apply these skills they're learning in daily life, like, what are the mechanisms we need to kind of add to the video gaming experience? And certainly, back when I first developed this, I think it was like 15 years ago now, there wasn't the same potential for technology to prompt and track skill usage as there is now. So we certainly have dimensions built in now with, tracking skill application at home and school, with appropriate privacy safeguards in place. But the group delivery modality seemed like a natural way to provide a platform for kids to practice the skills they're learning in real time and get input and coaching and incidental teaching to scaffold that skill development before they then put these skills in action in daily life at home and school. So the group component was really considered very important for the skill application. Now, technology has evolved quite a bit in the last sort of 10 to 15 years. And so I think an important research question we have going forward is like, what are the core elements that really need to lead to the success of this? We recently published a trial that didn't have the group delivery, that had at-home parents and kids working together, which during COVID has been particularly pertinent.
Was it because of COVID?
It was just before COVID. So we published the results January this year. And then obviously it provided evidence for the delivery modality that's often been used in COVID. Also, we've done virtual groups during COVID. So kids all coming onto the same Zoom link and facilitating the program in that way. But the question now is there, like, how important is face-to-face versus virtual, and group delivery versus individual? And we've shown some positive outcomes from all of those, but head-to-head comparisons, we really need to move in that direction for sure.
And I think that another generalizing mechanism that is often relied on when you think about working with kids is their parents. How are parents involved in such a program?
Yeah, so parents are really pivotal to this intervention framework. So as well as the video game, we have a whole integrated technology platform where kids play the group games in our 10-session curriculum. There's a parent portal. So parents participate in weekly group coaching sessions just like the kids do. We also track kids' progress throughout both the video game and the other intervention component, and also school staff. They play a very pivotal role in helping kids put these skills into action at school. So parents and wherever possible, a school staff member are critical elements of our support team for kids. And often when we look at outcomes from research trials, parents are like, hey, this was super helpful in boosting our skills and confidence and giving us a common language with our children for how to talk about these concepts. And in that moment where your child's really distressed and overwhelmed, sometimes you can freeze, feeling like, okay, I know what to do here. I know how to help my child use these skills so that they can calm down and move forward rather than get stuck and feel overwhelmed.
So that's, from what you just said, I gather that the original concept of the original setting for the intervention was a clinic-based setting that it allows the intervention with children and parents. Have you actually tried it in school settings?
We have. Yeah, we've done quite a bit of research in both specialist school settings and mainstream school settings and shown similar outcomes. I guess one of the challenges sometimes for staff delivering the program in a school setting is the parent engagement piece can sometimes be a little more challenging. We all know how overwhelmed parents can feel trying to juggle the demands of, often work, caring for children, all the other things that life throws at us. And so being creative around, do parents join virtually? Do they have a video link that they can watch afterwards if they can't come to a live session? And also involving parents in co-play of the video game at home.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because on one hand, I think that it could allow parents and children to have their common language. On the other, I wonder if some of the parents would find that quite challenging.
Great question, Ofer. So we initially, it's very, very true what you just said. So initially we were like, we'll just encourage parents to play the video game along with their kids. And it became very clear that for some parents that was daunting and overwhelming. Like they felt this pressure of like, what if I choose the wrong emotion? Or what if I don't get it right? And so we actually at the very beginning of particularly the group program have a whole section on setting parents up for success and how to introduce the video game to their child. How do you co-play a video game in a way where you're feeling calm and confident? It sets your child up to be optimally engaged. So we actually teach that as a skill to parents now and helping them see that often they're making mistakes or not getting the right answer straight away in terms of the gamification platform helps reduce their child's anxiety about, what? maybe mum or dad or grandma, they can't get it right first off either. So it's no big deal if I don't get it. So that's
part
actually
of the idea is actually teaching the kids, letting them understand that the emotional world is not clear to all of us, not completely clear to all of us.
Absolutely. It's a discovery journey. And there's not one right way to demonstrate an emotion either. Right. So that's one of the nuances of teaching emotion through technology is there's lots of different variations, and culture plays a role in that too. Even with eye contact, it looks different in different cultures depending on who you're interacting with, the intensity of the emotion. So all those nuances, teaching it through technology is a great challenge, but there's also so much potential there.
Thanks for bringing up the idea of the notion of culture, because I know that Secret Agent Society has been created in Australia,
yes,
and then tested in the US and in Canada. How did you find it actually crossed the ocean?
That's a really good question. So I guess the way we try and set up Secret Agent Society in terms of expectations, both for kids, for parents, teachers, clinicians, is like these are some examples, but you need to put your own cultural lens on it. And so the video game is designed to always be played with the child with some sort of adult support, whether it be a teacher, a parent, a clinician, or maybe a combination of all of them. And so the idea is these are one example, but then have the discussion, like use that as a teachable moment around, okay, this must be how these Aussies show surprise or embarrassment or sarcasm. What do we do that looks a little different? So it's one example that then allows for a conversation, acting out emotions, spotting them in everyday life to allow for. And when we talk about cultural variation, we're not just talking about it at a national level. There's lots of cultural nuancing within communities as well. So it's designed to promote the conversation, lead to more exploration, as opposed to this is the one way you demonstrate this emotion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the original main character in the game was a boy, right?
Yes.
And we know that in the last 2 decades, we get to see more and more girls on the spectrum who are potentially, players in your game. Do you actually have a female version? And would you expect it to look different?
That's, again, really good questions, Ofer. I'm glad you're hosting this segment. So we definitely want a main female avatar. We have female characters in the video game. This is where what we spoke about comes into play in terms of we looked at speccing out, having everything simulated with a main female avatar, and also customization, where you build your own character, so to speak. And the cost at this point in our sort of dissemination journey was just prohibitive. But certainly we set that preface for kids, like this is on our wish list. We really want to move in that direction. It's actually been surprising to me how open girls are about, okay, this is my main avatar. It's not a female. It hasn't been as big an issue as I would have expected, but the customization piece is one of the big requests for kids, like being able to, like they do in mini games, choosing your own hair or your own accessories, making your own avatar either look like you or not, however you want it to look. So that piece around customization beyond male or female is really on their wish list, and certainly on ours as well.
But when you think about, I was wondering about the identity of the main player, but the other way of looking at it is the expression of emotions and how it varies not only between cultures, or you said within cultures, but also between males and females, or boys and girls, and how as kids we need to, or adults, we need to be able to spot them, even if they are nuanced, even if they are expressed more mildly, or even if they are masked. And do you actually have the opportunity to discuss or experience these?
Definitely. So in the actual video game and also in the larger group curriculum, we have examples of emotion that vary according to intensity. So we have 3 degrees of intensity, low, medium, or high, and that applies to lots of different emotions. Also male and female examples and across age groups, as well as different racial examples as well. And then in the group curriculum that the video game is often embedded within, there's a lot of discussion around, the types of even bullying and teasing, or, the types of friendships and how there can be a lot of nuancing according to stereotypical female versus male demonstrations, but also realizing that there can be a lot of crossover as well. I mean, in the culture that we live in today, we understand that there can be a lot of, even gender fluidity or different identifications. So we need to be sensitive to that as well, in kind of typecasting or stereotyping, cliquey girl groups versus boys out there, playing on the playground with more physical activities. But we certainly do explore that. And things like, the difference between social rejection versus the more subtle social exclusion that can be a little more common amongst, girl groups as well. So we do definitely explore that. Also the notion of rumors and gossip. And so some of those nuances are newer additions that we added to Secret Aging Society as it's evolved over the last sort of 10 plus years.
So where do you see it going next?
Ooh, as we spoke about, there's a lot of things on my wish list technologically as to where I would love for this to go. I think in that skill application piece, technology's come so far. So it's not just using technology to teach kids to skills, it's using technology to prompt them to use these skills in the moment when they need to, and then using gamification strategies to encourage that and motivate them to do that. So that's an area I'm very excited to explore. Also, thinking about the applicability of this for lots of kids. So yes, we started off with kids on the spectrum, but we've also done trials with kids with ADHD, with anxiety challenges, and typically developing kids. I mean, these are skills we all need in our daily life.
Especially after COVID.
Exactly. So thinking about broader applicability, both in terms of, the general population, but also different age groups.
Fascinating. I was wondering about these two directions, because I think that the path that you've been taking in many ways, my work was also around this, was to try and teach using technology. Whereas the alternative could be, instead of teaching you to walk, I'll give you crutches. So technology could be used to actually suggest the answer instead of teaching you how to spot it.
Yes.
Where do you see this going? I mean, do you feel threatened by technology overcoming or making psychologists, retire earlier than needed?
I don't at all. And I think that's because I've always gone into this sort of path of passion and interest with the notion of there is not a one-size-fits-all solution to problems. And in terms of the sort of help and support out there, I see technology as a valuable addition and complement and can enhance the work that clinicians do. So I don't see it as a replacement, but I think there are so many families out there who want help, who want to support their children to learn these skills, and who can't get access to a trained clinician or educator or whatever the professional might be. And so we need to have a range of solutions to help. And as I said, I don't think it's a one size fits all. I don't think technology is going to replace us, but I think it's a beautiful complement and can really enhance the work that we do.
Yeah, well, let's hope it stays that way, especially at least for us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Renae, for this beautiful introduction of your work. And there's surely a lot more to hear about. And I look forward to meeting you and chatting in the future.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Ofer. Bye, everyone.
Take care.